welcome back to Mini Urban Farm. It is seed haul day. Now this season I am going to be doing a little bit different of a garden than I've done in the past, just because it's been a little crazy this past year. If you guys have followed the channel, you know that there's been a lot going on. This garden season coming up, we are moving into September and October and beyond to the end of the year, and we are also planning on moving into our new house in the next month or so. Fingers crossed. I know I've been saying that for a little bit, but we are actually at the home stretch of our house build, and we will be moving into that space. So I don't want to set my garden up and myself up for failure by growing things that need a lot of care. So I've selected a whole bunch of varieties here that hopefully are very low maintenance. I will be doing an entire another video on a set it and forget it garden, just so that you guys can see exactly how I'm setting up my garden this season, so that I have to do very, very little work on it. But also I'm setting up my garden so that when we move out, my dad, who is staying in this house and taking over this garden space, he can take care of the garden with relatively pest-free, a relatively pest-free garden space, and hopefully minimal issues. I'm going to set everything up so that he can just take it over, including the amount of stuff that I've decided to grow. It originally started as a much smaller list of stuff, but then of course I started going through my seed box and I was like, no, well, this could work as low effort, this could work as low maintenance. So all of the varieties here that I've selected require minimal babying. They're either very hardy with pests or require very little input from my part to maintain them, like trellising or any of that stuff. I've opted for nothing that gets trellised, which is a little bit difficult for me because you guys know I love growing tomatoes and things that trellis and growing vertically, but that does take a lot of work and effort to maintain a good trellis system going and make sure things aren't toppling over. So everything I've selected today, or everything I've selected for this season, is going to be low effort gardening. Alright, so let's jump in. I have quite a few things here. I've broken them up into different sections. And I'll start with the first one, which is actually something that I normally wouldn't plant. It is, it's a perennial, and that is ginger. Alright, as you can see, this little bag of ginger has started sprouting. Now, this was something that was left on the countertop, and it's just from the grocery store. Now, I've done this before where I've planted ginger from the grocery store, and I've actually tried to get it to sprout. This started sprouting on its own. I have at least 4 or 5 buds here that are sprouting, so it was not intentional, and I figured instead of chopping that off and just using it, might as well put it in the garden. That's something that my dad really likes to cook with, and I love to cook with ginger. I have a ton of ginger growing in the food forest right now, so I'm not sure if this will really start taking off this season, but I'm gonna plant it this season, and then it might die back in winter and come back in spring. But yeah, so I'm gonna plant this. I'm just gonna chop it up and stick it in different places throughout the garden, and either way it's really pretty. I like the leaves on ginger. It's very ornamental. So that's the first thing. That's not really like a garden seed, but if you guys are interested in growing ginger, you can grab it from the supermarket. Just wait for it to grow buds and do it that way. Now, the first set of seeds that I'm going to be growing, and I'm a little out of breath actually already talking here. Another reason that I failed to mention, and I have no idea how I missed this one, but another reason that I'm going to be planting a very low effort garden this season is because I'm almost 7 months pregnant, and I don't want to be having to do a ton of work in the garden out here every single day. I want to just take it a little bit easier. I love being out in the garden. I just want to be able to harvest my stuff without doing a ton of extra work and troubleshooting and that sort of thing. So that's another reason. But the first thing that I will be planting a lot of, and actually I only have 1 packet of this for right now. I have some more in a box somewhere, so I have to find them. But it is the moss curled parsley. There we go. So I have some Italian leaf parsley, which isn't the curly parsley. I happen to like the curly parsley for eggs a lot. I think it just tastes a little bit different in eggs, but either way, parsley of any sort, I love planting it. It attracts a lot of butterflies if you plant it in a really dense space. I think it's actually the swallowtail butterfly that I always get in my garden when I plant out large chunks of parsley. So basically I just take this entire seed packet and I spread it within like a 2 square foot area, and then just up pops all the parsley, and then you just have like a sea of parsley, and you can use it for so many things. I use it for like chimichurri sauce, I use it for sauces, you know, different types of sauces, for seasoning. I dry a whole bunch of it, I freeze a whole bunch of it into like little herb bombs. And I have a video on the channel on how I make my herb bombs, so you can go check that out as well. And I love doing like a tabbouleh salad, and for that you need tons of parsley. So I have several packets of this. I just have to go dig them out of the box, and I will be planting tons of this out throughout the garden. It is super low maintenance, something that you don't really have to worry about once you plant it. Now, in actual food terms, I am planting out lots of beans. Now, I'm not planting out anything that needs to be trellised, right? So there's green beans that are like pole beans, or any color beans that are pole beans, and then there are bush beans. All right, starting with the jade bush beans. Now, these were just left over from a previous season. These are the jade bush beans from my garden in spring of 2022. I seed saved these. There's only, I think, maybe like 10 or 15 of them in here, so not that many, but I'll use these to supplement the other ones. And then I have 2.5, all right, this is my half packet. I have 2.5 packet of my Blue Lake bush beans. Now, these are from Baker Creek. Oops. There you go, Blue Lake bush beans. And these ones I've been growing for several years now. I always get an amazing harvest out of these. These ones you plant out either 6 or 9 in a square foot. I usually try to stick to like 7-ish, has been a really good number for me. And then they just grow into like a very dense sea of bush beans, and then you just go and harvest them. They don't trellis, they don't need any sort of staking, they really need very little inputs. At the end of the season, I harvest everything, and then I chop out all of the leafy parts, right? I literally go and cut them out. I don't even pull them out of the soil. I cut them out with scissors, and then I just like drop them in place. All right, so chop and drop, and then I cover them with compost, and that just adds tons more nutrients back into the soil. Since I started doing that, I've gotten so much more fertility from my soil, and these ones, I think my biggest harvest in one day was like 4 pounds of bush beans, and I harvested at least a few times that week. So I'll be planting these. Super easy, they take up tons of space covering the soil. I would definitely recommend these for a low effort, low maintenance garden. Now, of course, something that you can't get away with not growing in fall, and we're going into fall season after all, fall of 2023, especially if you live in a climate like mine where you can't really grow these types of things all year round. Some of them you can, but it gets a little tricky, is salad greens. Now, salad greens, and I did go a little bit more intense than I wanted to with the salad greens. Some of these are, I think maybe 1 or 2 are duplicates. But salad greens are such a low maintenance, low effort choice, because you just sow them in the soil, water them, and they come up, and then you just harvest them. They're really quick to grow, which means that you're going to get a really good turnaround time for your investment. A lot of these take as little as 30 days. So if I plant now, next month I'm eating salad. And I like having a variety of salad greens in the garden. The first one of which is arugula. So this is wild rocket arugula. It's just like a common arugula from Baker Creek. I like this one. I've grown it pretty much every single season. It doesn't really ever get pests. I have had lots of things with aphids on them, and this can be right next to whatever has aphids, and it never gets anything. And it's just really good for you. So I like arugula in lots of different things: salads, grain bowls, eggs, you name it, pizza. I love growing arugula, and it's super quick, super easy, never gets any pests, and I've actually tried to seed save it a few times, but you have to let it go for quite a bit of time. I ended up just chopping it down and replanting it. But I eventually plan on putting this in the food forest as well, so that I can seed save it and not have to buy garden seeds ever again for arugula. That is my first one for salad greens that hopefully won't give me any problems, just like it has in the past. My second one is actually Mizuna, and just so you can see the way it's spelled, these are what the seeds look like. And the reason that they're in a plastic baggie is because I actually grew Mizuna last year, towards the end of the year, early this year, and it just went to seed because I didn't rip it out, and it self-seeded everywhere, continued to grow, and I just took the seeds from it. Alright, I harvested seeds, and I think it'll probably be a volunteer in my garden anyway, so I won't have to plant it, but either way, I'm going to try to plant some of it out, or I'm going to plant some of it out. It tastes like a cross between arugula and mustard, spinachy. It's a little bit more mild, which I like because arugula and other things I'm planting are quite strong and quite bitter. But Mizuna is a great salad green. I mean, I think it was super prolific last year. I'm just gonna take it and sprinkle it over a couple of square feet. Probably in a very similar space as to where I have my arugula, because it does, or it did do very well in like a shaded spot last year with very minimal effort. So that's another one that perfect last season, didn't give me any issues. Now I have two different types of spinach here. I have one that's already opened. Now I have two different types of spinach here. I have one that's already open from American Seed, and I think this is like somebody gave me this pack of seeds. I didn't buy this. It is Giant Noble Spinach, and I don't remember growing this. I might have tried to grow it at some point in time, but I just don't remember it. But I'm going to just use up the rest of the seeds here. Spinach does really well in fall in my climate. You can't really grow it throughout the year. Actually, most of these things do really well in this climate because here we are in zone 9B. It does get very, very hot throughout the majority of the year, and it starts to cool off around this time of year, around like end of September, October. So hopefully I will be able to plant spinach. I've grown spinach in the past, not recently though, so we'll see how this goes. If it doesn't do too well, I'm not going to be super bummed about it. The same thing with my Gigante de Invierno spinach from Baker Creek. That's how you spell it. It says it's a really good one for winter, right? Of course, invierno in Italian and in Spanish actually means winter. It produces large, broad, deep leaf greens well into the fall and winter months. So I'm hoping it does something very similar to like my other salad greens where I can just sprinkle it out. There's a lot of seeds in here. I can feel like a good majority of seeds in here in the like this part and down from the packet. So I'm assuming the seeds are pretty large. Hopefully this does well. If it doesn't, I won't be too bummed about it, but nonetheless. And then I have two different types of lettuce here. I have Bronze Beauty lettuce and Merlot lettuce, both from Baker Creek. You can see one is like that beautiful Merlot color, and then the other one has, I don't know if you can see this, it's like green, but the outlines of it are like this like crimson brown kind of bronze color. It's supposed to be very heat tolerant, this one, and this one says it's really good for cut and come again harvesting, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't want to have to rip things out to harvest them. I'm hoping that by planting these, which you know is supposed to be good for fall here, I can just cut and come again, grab all my baby greens, toss them into a salad mix, and that should be good. I have grown lettuce before and it was relatively easy. I don't often grow lettuce, but I am trying to incorporate a lot more leafy greens into our diet, so I will be planting this out and should be a very low maintenance, low effort garden crop. Now my next one is mustard. This is a Japanese giant red mustard. I have grown this pretty much every single season. It is great as baby greens. It also produces a very large, really pretty plant once it is fully grown, and it did go to seed last year. Actually I think I did seed save some of it, but I had another seed packet here, so I'm going to use this one up. It's a very strong flavor, so if you do not like mustard, you should cut it when the leaves are very small. Alright, or if you're not like a fan of that bitter flavor, then definitely use it as baby greens. If you like plant this out very densely, it does the exact same thing as arugula. You can just eat it as baby greens and you know cut it like that and it won't grow very large. But if you thin it out, or if you plant just one or two in a space, they tend to get very, very large and the leaves do get very bitter. I do often cut it when it's very large and it's too bitter for us to eat. I give it to the chickens. So this one is very low maintenance, and I've never had any issues with pests on my mustard. I suspect they probably don't like the bitterness. But that one is going to be perfect for a low maintenance garden. And then I am going to plant this out with the caveat that it might require a tiny bit more babying. I've done it both ways in the past where I just plant it out and it's like just cut and come again, but then it got overrun with aphids. And then I've planted out where I put it in the greenhouse first, start seedlings, then transplant it into the garden, make sure that they're protected, all of that, and they do much better. However, I'm still going to plant it out, and that is my kale. This is a dazzling blue kale. You can see it's like green and the leaves are borderline blue. It is a very pretty variety, and it is the variety I've had the most success with. I've grown several different types of kale, and this is one definitely, and this one is definitely by far my favorite. Kale, in my experience, does take a tiny bit more babying. However, if I plant it out the same way that I plant out my arugula and my other baby leaf green type salad greens, it does pretty well. I just have to make sure that I use my neem oil early on in the season and it doesn't get overrun with aphids. If it does, then I will rip it out, and that's the end of it. But I'm going to try it. I'm not going to stress too much about it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then oh well. I have the rest of my salad greens here. Alright, and then on to our last category, which is our root crops. Now, fall is the only time here in Central Florida Zone 9B where we can grow root crops, successfully at least for myself. I don't know about anybody else, but the majority of people that I've spoken to in this area cannot grow root crops. Once spring hits, it gets very warm very quickly and they just won't develop. So the first one I'm going to go with is carrots. I'm going to be growing this beautiful like purple and white carrot. It's called Nif or Ganif. I think it's Nif. It says it's a Swiss variety. Always purple and then like a yellow or white center. Perfect for fall gardening and good for storage. Now I usually don't grow enough carrots in this space to be able to store them, but it's good to know, if you do grow tons of them. I've grown orange carrots before. I have grown purple carrots before. Last year I grew purple carrots and they did very well. So I'll probably put them in a very similar space to what I did last year, which was somewhat sunny but a little bit of shade still. And they did really well. Now the kids love going out and picking carrots just because like you get to see what's underneath the soil, So I'll be planting these out, and carrots in my experience don't require a lot, right? You thin them at the beginning of the season. I'm gonna try to plant them a little bit more spaced out so that I don't have to go back and thin them, which is gonna prevent a lot of work on my part. So number one is carrots. And then here, I'll go with my burpee salad rose radishes, which are just a beautiful variety, right? That deep pink purple color. These are supposed to be about 7 or 8 inches long. I think they're like as long as carrots, not like the little round radishes. I happen to really love radishes. Not many other people in my family love radishes, but my dad actually also really likes radishes, and when he gets back from visiting my sister, he's actually going to be planting all these things out, the root crops. So I'm going to start out by planting everything else, and then when he gets back in a couple of weeks, then he'll go through and he'll plant out all of the root crops, because right now it's a little bit too warm outside to plant these out. Generally, I don't plant out my root crops until maybe mid-October, where it cools off a little bit. When I've planted them earlier in the past here, they tend to not do very well and they just wilt or die, and they just don't develop. So I'm going to wait a little bit and let him plant these out, but this is what we're going to be doing for carrots. And then the other radish I'm going to be doing is it's actually a free seed variety from Baker Creek. When I ordered the rest of my seeds, I got this one. It's a Japanese wasabi radish. I don't particularly like wasabi, but my dad loves wasabi, so he'll be planting this out and get to harvest this. Now radishes grow really quickly, which is another reason why it's so low maintenance. I've never had any pest issues with radishes. I think a lot of times, like in root crops, you have very few or very minimal issues with pests because they're just underneath and protected right in the soil. So 2 different types of radishes. And then the last one is beets. Now this is a Detroit dark red beet, I think it's called. Yes, medium top Detroit dark red beet. I have grown this in the past, not super well. I have grown a few beets, and then I kind of put them on the back burner as something I didn't really want to grow again, but it is a very easy thing to grow because it doesn't require like trellising, it doesn't require a lot of babying, so I'm going to give it a try again. If it doesn't do well, then that's fine, but there are quite a few of them in here from when I tried growing them last time, so I'm going to plant these and see what comes out of them. Now, as I mentioned, this season I'm trying to grow a lot of things that are very low effort and low maintenance. My goal is to come out into the garden to harvest at least, well, let's say twice a week. I'm going to aim for twice a week harvesting, which should be fine, right? Because a lot of these things don't require daily harvesting. If I was growing something like tomatoes, then you would probably want to harvest a little bit more because they rot on the vine very easily, and the amount of sugar attracts pests and all of that. But with like bush beans, I've never had an issue where I don't harvest for a day and they all go bad. Like, that generally doesn't happen. So my goal with this garden and with these garden seeds here is to do very little work for this season. Of course, when I move into the next, when we move into our new house in hopefully what they're saying is a month, I will begin working on my new garden, which means that this is going to be the last season in this garden. I've been in this garden for 2-ish years, and we created this garden from scratch. There wasn't a garden here when we moved in, and this garden has really given us a lot of food. It started off as 60 square feet, and it expanded to I think just under 100 square feet when we added the 2 metal raised beds on either side of the fence. So a lot of food in 100 square feet, and we still have an entire backyard for the dog to run around in and play, and the kids can come out and play soccer and whatever in the backyard. So that is my seed haul for fall 2023. Next season I hope to have a much more extensive seed haul because I'm going to be expanding my garden to upwards of 2,000 square feet, which is a little bit different than 100 square feet. So stay tuned for that one. I will be I'll be publishing my next video, or one of my next videos, to be the exact strategy I'm using, like besides these garden seeds, what else am I doing to not have to be out here every day taking care of the garden. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification to see that video if you guys are interested, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.